Devils Like to Dance, Chapter 12. A Cafe, Paper, and Magic Charms? Beck Garrett was a college sophomore with a bright future. Clean cut, neat, but plain looking. He had short brown hair, a narrow chin, and wore glasses. Always a quiet boy, but with an intelligence that brightly outshone his classmates throughout his entire school career. That said, he was easily bored by work and talking to people who aren't interesting to him. He was always bored. Always. Be that as it may, he did take delight in watching people try to solve their problems and worries. In fact, he enjoyed this so much that he would sometimes intentionally cause these problems. Going out with girls, treating them like princesses, only to cheat on them later, causing random accidents that could very well ruin people's lives, framing people for offenses that they in fact did not commit. Yes, the young man was fond of watching people suffer emotionally. He enjoyed the power that came with it. In addition, he was a young boy. He would also tease his. In addition, when he was a young boy, he would also tease his pets, pulling his dog's tail, taking the fish out of its bowl, hitting the cat with a stick. Beck found it all so funny somehow. He sounds like two other boys we know, the Phantom Hive and Transit Boys. They also fancied watching people get upset. The difference between these two groups, however, were that the boys were sociopaths and Beck was a psychopath. Sociopaths are made that way, through trauma or abuse. Psychopaths are simply born. Beck Garrett was charismatic and charming. It's no wonder that he was able to get others under his spell. The others he enlisted into his game were all people he had met online, people who were also quiet and generally odd. Most of them felt as though they had been wronged by society. Take Peter Miller, for example. He was often bullied and abused as a child, and had recently discovered his supposed girlfriend was dating other men and was only interested in his money. That would make anyone upset. Then came Garrett out of the blue in his time of self-loathing. With a few words and wonderful promises, poor Peter was under his spell, and became part of the group who would become collectively known as the Sudoku Killer. Excuse me. It was now the task of our boys to apprehend this man and his subordinates. Ciel knew this wasn't going to be easy. They would have to swiftly and cleverly outwit this foe. Even if they did arrest him, there was no guarantee that he would reveal the identity of his minions, or that they would stop after their leader is gone. However, the eye-patch-wearing gentlemen also knew that they were equally as likely to either disperse or make more mistakes without leadership. Beck, they got Peter. What do we do? What if the rest of us get caught? Asked one of the people at the large table in a secluded corner of a small cafe in downtown London in a whisper. No worries, the clever young man began in a soft voice. Peter's not a squealer, and he knows the penalty for singing. He smiled at this, calmly and coolly sipping his coffee. He'll become number 9? Said a third person, a young woman, perhaps freshly out of high school. Exactly. The chessmaster's smile twisted into a smirk at this. Oh, how fun that would be, he said, placing his cup back on its saucer. Only one more until then, said the first man. So exactly what are we going to do then? Joined a fourth person, another man appearing to be in his late 20s or early 30s. Beck looked at the fourth and said, Patience, I have a plan. I promise you. It'll be more fun than all the rest combined. The others smiled and nodded to each other at this. They were clearly excited to find out what was in store next, and with Beck at the head, no one, not even the police, could stop them. Except, of course, for the two boys seated at the other side of the very same cafe. These lads were not ordinary. They could be referred to as unnatural, even. The boys, one of blackish blue and the other with hair of blonde, for example, had very good hearing. Even though they were across the room at this slightly busy cafe, they could hear every last word that the other group was saying. They hung on to those words and stored them for use in the very near future. No, these boys were simply not ordinary. They were simply not human, you see. The younger looking of the two, wearing an eye patch with hair of the most peculiar shade of bluish-black, was named Ciel Phantom Hive. He worked for Her Majesty, the Queen of England, solving cases of a distressing nature, in addition to owning a toy company that has been in business for over a century. He was not human. He was a demon who owned another, much older demon as a servant. Ciel was definitely a force not to be trifled with. Eloise was the boy who sat across from the first in the small diner. He certainly was not normal. The blond boy was a bit disturbed, perhaps a bit more so than the first, yet he had a peculiar innocence about him that could almost hide this fact. It was unknown what he was. Not even he is sure. All that is known was that he was brought back from the beyond by the previous boy and a servant, and he was now living with them. He seems to have sensory and healing capabilities far beyond an ordinary human. Both were traits of demons, but he had numerous very undemon-like qualities that seemed to keep him from being able to be placed in the category. For example, the boy needed sleep. Demons don't require sleep. It's just a luxury to them. Eloise also needed to eat, in ways that demons do not. Demons may eat less often and eat human souls, which the blond boy did not. The boy was very peculiar that he was not human, nor was he a demon. He was just Eloise. Did you get all that? He asked the boy who was previously mentioned. Of course I did. Did you? The fallen angel replied and inquired to the boy across from him, watching him blow on his hot cocoa before drinking it in a manner that he could only describe as cute. Yeah, he finally said. What are we going to do about this? We can't simply walk over there and arrest them for talking about the killings. Ciel sighed and said, True. His thought was interrupted when he heard a member of the group they were tailing speak up again. It was the man in his late 20s, early 30s to speak. Don't worry, I'll cover the bill this time, he said. Are you sure? Inquired the young woman. Thanks, that's very kind of you. Members of the groups across from the strange boys were preparing to leave. They got up and started to put on their coats, hats, scarves, and gloves as the man from before was walking up to the register to pay. Just then, Ciel perked up while watching him. He noticed that the man's method of paying could be helpful to our petite detective. They're leaving, said the blonde, pulling the other boy from his thoughts. What do we do? Are we going to follow them? The slate-haired lad looked to Eloise to answer his question. No, he said. We're going to wait for them to leave. Why? I know how we can discover the identity of one of them, replied the sly earl. Just wait and watch. Eloise waited and he watched. He waited rather patiently by his standards, but that is neither here nor there. When the last of the other group had left, his companion got up and walked up to the register. The boy followed to discover the plan of his rather serious friend. How can I help you two boys? Asked the kind-looking older woman behind the counter. I need you to show me the check the man who just left paid with, please. The woman looked at the boy in front of her with a look of confusion for a moment, unable to wrap her head around the boy's strange request. Finally she spoke. Now, I'm sorry, love, but I can't do that, she said. Ciel reached into his pocket and pulled out a badge and showed it to the woman. Sir Ciel Phantomhive, Detective Constable in service to Her Majesty, also known as the Queen's Guard Dog. Eloise reached into his pocket and pulled out a matchbox and showed it to the woman. Eloise Trancey, the Queen's Spider. I'm with him, he said, pointing to his friend at his side. The woman behind the counter inspected the Phantomhive boy's badge, mouth slightly agape in disbelief. Children working for Her Majesty? What a concept. She adjusted her spectacles to get a better look. It looked like the real deal. Down to the royal seal on the badge. This was no toy. She finally gave in and handed Ciel the check, which he copied down to Tracy's signature. He handed the check back to the woman. Thank you for your cooperation. And have a nice day, added the blonde before following Ciel out of the restaurant. They walked along the sidewalk in the cold for a while on their way to meet Sebastian with the car. After much pondering, Eloise gave up. All right, so how is that piece of paper going to help us? He finally asked. It's called a check, Ciel began. People use it to transfer money they owe from their bank accounts to businesses in order to pay for something, he explained. So you don't have to carry money around everywhere? Clever, replied the flaxen teen. But how does copying that guy's check help us? There's all sorts of information written on the check, including the person's name. the bank they use, and if it's filled out, their signature. We just go to the bank that man uses. I flash my badge again and force them to give us information on him. They will know his address, phone number, and even occupation. Eloise was astonished by this. Such a small piece of paper and shiny object could get information that otherwise would be kept completely confidential? He was certain if this was a good thing or a bad thing, but it certainly was useful. That's an impressive object, your badge. I guess it is, the shorter of the two replied before pausing for a moment and inquiring. Come to think of it, what was that you showed the woman behind the counter anyway? A matchbox. Where on earth did you get a matchbox? The blonde thought for a moment and hesitated before answering. I found it, he said. Give it. Ciel held out his hand to the blonde, as he did not trust him with such a thing for understandable reasons. Eloise, in response, took his hand and curtsied. Charmed, he said jokingly. Just give me the bloody matches. Chapter 13. I tried to remember. 7 bodies found, 2 more are still expected. The Phantom Hive boy gathered a new piece of evidence regarding the case he was currently working on. It was the name of one of the people involved in the killings. His name was Brian Ackerman. He worked at a used record store in town and would walk through a particular park on his way to and from work every day. Ciel and Eloise were tailing him in order to warn the officers if he was almost home. They were performing a search of the man's home, as Brian, an outwardly kind man, had a violent history, according to police records. He had various assault charges, harassment charges, and has been accused of stalking. The lads followed him at a safe distance so he wouldn't suspect them. They were waiting for the call that would tell them that the officers are done searching and they can go home for the day and get out of this cold weather. How long do you think it will take them? Asked Eloise. Who knows? Depends how well the guy hides his stuff, if he has any, replied Ciel to the nearly frozen blonde next to him. Ciel didn't particularly mind the cold. Eloise, however, did. The poor boy's nose was red, and he was shivering while blowing on his gloved hands in order to warm them. His previous coat was ruined by a large dog, so he was wearing one of Ciel's coats, which was smaller and unfortunately less insulated. Eloise was, as a result, very keen to the idea of going home, where he can snuggle under a blanket or stand by the magical heater. Lo and behold, his prayers were answered by a sudden phone call from Detective Constable Bailey. Ciel, who found ringtones to be loud and annoying, had his phone set on vibrate. The fact that the dangerous man they were following wouldn't hear it was a bonus. Hello? The boy answered. What did you find? The man on the other end of the line answered. Lots. A suitcase with a puzzle book and a piece of paper with the number 8 on it inside, knives, cables, and wire, and narcotics, among other things. That's a good jail sentence right there. Anything else? We searched his computer and found military hand-to-hand combat manuals saved on it, and CP. CP? Ciel repeated. His visible eye immediately darted to the blonde who was eavesdropping on the conversation, analyzing his face. The Phantom Hive boy could see the confusion the blonde had over that term. Ciel immediately regretted asking. Now he knew he was going to have to explain to Eloise what exactly CP was, and he was dreading it. All right, get out of here as quickly as possible, he continued. Will do. Keep us updated, replied Bailey. Ciel hung up and simply waited for his blonde friend to ask the dreaded question. What is CP? He finally asked. Damn it, Ciel thought. He paused and took a deep breath before turning to face the blonde. He didn't exactly know how Eloise would react, but if he didn't tell him, the trancy boy would only nag him relentlessly. Finally, he answered. It stands for child pornography. Eloise just froze in place. He stopped walking, and the color had drained from his face. The look in his eyes was that of fear and of hatred. His past was tucked away back in the deepest recesses of his mind. The things he had to do to survive, forgotten. That was until this moment. All that came flooding to the front of the boy's mind. Memories of that man, the one he once had to pretend was his father. That man which had brought him and turned him into a slave. That man, the one who had used his body as his personal plaything. That man was long since dead, yet that man was now before him, and he was supposed to follow him. Ciel not only sensed this, but he saw it in the frightened boy's eyes. He didn't know what to do. He was not used to comforting people. He knew this. But the boy at his side desperately needed him. He knew this as well. All he could think of to do was grab his hand and tell him in his softest voice, "It's all right, you're safe." His words resonated in the blonde's ears, warming them. The boy finally blinked, awoken from his trance. "Thank you," was all he said. His tone was hushed, but it was also sincere. Eloise let go of Ciel's hand to wrap his arms around his demonic savior, and the other boy just led him. They continued walking, this time to the car so that they may go home. They would eventually catch the Sudoku killer, but that was for another day. Chapter 14. The Sudoku Killer. The sky was black and the night air freezing, and three figures neared an apartment complex just north of the Thames River. 3 figures. There were 5 when they began, but their comrades simply could not escape the long arm of the law. They were ready with their necessary tools for this task. The young men and the young woman were ready to enter this house and perform the activity they came specifically to do, ready to give the city their 8th victim, ready to kill. They had staked the place out for over a month, taking the key under the mat and making a copy for this purpose. They had made sure that their target was home alone on this night. They wanted to make sure the person in that small apartment on the ground floor was not a threat to them. The young woman in the apartment was completely unaware of the danger she was in. She had just finished her shower and was preparing to retire for the night. This, however, wasn't the case. When she was fast asleep, the intruder simply unlocked the door and waltzed inside, quietly as to not wake their unsuspecting victim. They trekked through the kitchen and into the living room. Suddenly, to their surprise, the light came on. "Good evening," said the sharply and darkly dressed boy wearing an eye patch in a chair on the other side of the room. "What the crap?" said the first of the figures, a young man in his mid-20s. "I thought you said she lived alone." Ooh, sorry. Ooh, that's terrible. "But she does," said the second, a girl who appeared to be fresh out of high school. "I was sure of it. I've never seen this kid before in my life." "Calm down, everyone. We can handle this," said the third man, who goes by the name Beck Garrett. "He's just a kid. Tie him up and he'll be number 9. "But he's just a kid, Beck," said the girl. "Do you want to take his place, then?" snapped the group's leader menacingly. The girl shook her head and pulled some rope out of her bag. They all started to walk towards the boy, who seemed to not be threatened in the least. "Oh?" He raised his brow questioningly. "What happens to number 9? "You're going to find out." After the figures bound the boy's arms and legs, the 2 men went into another room, while the girl watched the brunette boy. Beck and his partner were trying to locate the bedroom where their target lay sleeping. They did this for a few moments. When they heard the scream of the girl, they left with their other victim. Quickly, they rushed into the living room to see what was the matter. She was gone, and so was the boy. But in the boy's place was another boy, this one with flaxen hair, dressed just as sharply as the last. "Who are you?" said Beck. The blonde replied, You tie me up and now ask for my name? Animals, the lot of you." After staring at the annoyed-sounding blonde before them for a moment, the voice of a woman called from the other room. "Whoever is out there, better leave. I'm on the phone with the police right now." "Fuck," exclaimed the would-be chess master. "Leonard, grab the kid. We're out of here." The other man, who was apparently known as Leonard, did as he was instructed and threw the blonde boy over his shoulder. The 2 men and the boy dashed out of the house and to the awaiting getaway vehicle, where the blonde was promptly tossed to the back seat. "What about Vicky?" asked Leonard while strapping in. Forget her, Beck said as he stomped on the gas pedal. They left the girl behind and the car took off down the road. The boy tied up in the back seat was not happy. Where the bloody hell are you taking me? Untie me and let me out of this car at once. Leonard. A gun was put in the blonde's face by the man. You better shut the fuck up or I will shoot you, Leonard shouted. Alois was scared. He was not too keen on the idea of dying twice. The man before him looked deathly serious, and all he knew is that this plan of Ciel's had better work. The boy in question was, of course, tailing the vehicle. He hopped from rooftop to rooftop just like Spring-Heeled Jack. His performance was shrouded by the black cloak of the night sky. He would never let them escape. Suddenly, the car screeched to a halt in front of an abandoned warehouse by the river. Beck exited the vehicle and slammed the door shut. He yanked Alois out of the back seat and dragged him to the building. Come on, Leonard, we're skipping a number, he said. The other, now confused man could only look at him and ask, why? Beck stopped for a moment and turned to his accomplice. Because I'm pissed off. He tossed the boy onto the floor and then helped Leonard close the door. Beck then turned his attention back to Alois and untied him. Congratulations, he said to the blonde, currently trapped in this building with a couple of maniacs. You are going to get the honor of being our number 9. Do you know what that means? That's where there's going to be a party with cake? Beck was now at his limit with the annoying team before him. He had ruined his plans and blatantly mocked him. He picked up a metal baseball bat and handed another one to Leonard. Wrong, he said. You are going to die. The blonde immediately knew what was going to happen. They were going to beat him to death. These men were sadists, and they wanted him to suffer. They only untied him so they'd have a little more of a challenge. Bam! He was pulled from his thoughts by the feeling of the blunt object in contact with his face. Ugh! He grunted as he hit the floor. Reaching up to touch his face, he discovered that his nose was broken and his face was bleeding. The bat struck his body again and again, and the entire time the only thing he could think was, where's Ciel? The boy in question had caught up to the villains and reached the warehouse. Upon further inspection, he realized the large door was locked from the inside. He could probably force it open, but would have made lots of noise alerting the two of his presence, and they would have ample time to vacate the premises due to its weight. He would have to find another way in. Meanwhile, the beating had stopped momentarily so Beck and his associate could catch their breath. The blonde lay face down on the floor in a pool of blood mixed with a few tears, his skin riddled with bruises. In addition to this and his now broken nose, he now had a black eye, a cracked rib, a broken arm, a broken wrist, a concussion, a few bruised bones, and he was missing some teeth. He felt awful. He looked awful. And he only knew it was going to get worse. Beck looked over his handiwork and was quite pleased. How do you like that? He shouted tauntingly. How do you feel, you pathetic piece of shit? The deranged man laughed at the blonde before him, enjoying his pain. It burns, the boy mumbled. What? Mr. Garrett stopped and stared, trying to decipher the meaning of that. He saw the boy lying on the ground. He saw his wound start to smoke. It burns, Alois repeated. The two men watched in awe and in fear as the boy on the ground tried to get up, then caught fire. Black flames emitted from the boy's wounds, consuming him. They were black as the night sky outside, yet still gave off light, dancing as though they were alive. Alois! Ciel found his way into the building and desperately called to the blind as he saw the scene before him. His friend, his best friend, his only real friend was surrounded by a dark inferno. Alois! Just as suddenly as it had started, the flames died out, revealing the boy's frame. Those flames did not harm Alois, they had changed him. The boy's injuries were completely healed. There wasn't a single blemish that even suggested there had been a wound of any sort. His clothes were now different, too. He wore a black sleeveless shirt that only reached down to the end of his ribcage, exposing his abdomen. He had on a pretty standard pair of black short shorts with a belt that had the word Judas spelled out across the buckle, black boots that reached up above his knees, and fingerless gloves that ended past his elbows. Not only that, but his physical appearance changed as well. His nails were now long and black, matching his new wardrobe, His ears were now pointed. Even stranger, he had a tail like a monkey, just as blond as the hair on his head, and dark horns sprouted from the sides of his head and twisted forward like those of a bull. His smile was just as twisted, with sharp teeth, and his eyes were now glowing an ominous fiery red, yet they also gave him a look of euphoria. Eloise, thought Ciel. He looked just like a... Oh my God! His thoughts were, however, interrupted by the now screaming young man pointing at his blond friend. It's the devil! The flaxen-haired boy did not speak, but in a flash appeared directly in front of Leonard. His arm was cocked back, his fist clenched, and in a split second he released it. The impact of Aloysius' fist against the face of Leonard made the man fly backwards, landing with a thud on the ground like a rag doll. His nose was now broken, and the man and a few of his teeth were now knocked out. The blond devil now turned his attention to Beck, who was now reduced to a sniveling, cowering mess. He was about to give him the same treatment, when his friend called out to him again. Eloise! The boy stopped. He turned to the boy with hair of a slightly awkward bluish-black hue. He looked directly into the visible eye of that boy. Ciel? He relaxed his muscles as his friend rushed over to him. Are you all right? Are you hurt? Talk to me, said the phantom-eyed boy while searching his friend for any apparent injury. I'm fine, said the blonde. I'm just tired. I want to go home. The boy of blue looked at Eloise, shocked, if anything, before finally saying, All right, let's go home. The two boys exited the building after immobilizing the two villains, who were now awaiting to be taken to jail. They walked along the Thames, avoiding the swarm of police officers now in the area. With Eloise's current condition, it would be unfortunate for them to see. Ciel inspected the blonde's appearance, finally noticing his attire. He blushed at the amount of skin Eloise was showing. His shoulders, his abdomen, a strip of pale skin, and the blonde's legs between his shorts and his boots. These things caused the boy's face to heat up, so he took off his coat and handed it to his companion. Here, said Ciel, you'll freeze. The fair-haired boy took up the other's offer and put the coat around his shoulders. Thanks. The two gentlemen walked along the Thames, enjoying each other's company until Sebastian came with the car. But before they could greet the butler, something caught Aloise's attention. Hey, Ciel, what's that? He pointed across to the other side of the river. Following his finger, Ciel located what the other boy was talking about. It's a Ferris wheel, he said. It's called the Eye of London. You get in one of the passenger capsules, and it takes you around and around and up really high. I'll take you to ride it sometime. The blonde turned to his eye patch wearing companion and said, I'd like that.